Gang shit, man. Y'all already know what we ready to watch. We ready to watch top 10 worst American serial killers. Pew, 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 pew. For all y'all out there who like this creepy shit, I don't like it at all. My grandmother used to watch the ID channel. If y'all don't know what that means, it means identification channel. It's like they talk about serial killers, kids getting kidnapped. I used to stay over my grandma's house, and I used to lay on the side of her bed. And every night I wake up, all I hear is this song. Amy Wonder and the serial faces worn out of place. Yo, I used to hate that song. And on the ID channel, the kids used to run through the field and fucking disappear. And me at that young age, like, that shit blew my fucking mind. Like, I was like, yo, what the fuck? But yeah, we ready to get to this reaction video. Top 10 worst American serial killers. Let's get it.
Most of us can agree that serial killers are very disturbed or just mentally insane. What were the reasons why these serial killers murdered?
Yo, that clown
You may
look
never know the
crazy.
answer. These 10 individuals you are about to see had no regard for human life. These are the top 10 worst American serial killers.
Yo, people like this fucking blows my mind. Like,
Number 10. America's first serial killer. H.H. Holmes, also known as Dr. Henry Howard Holmes, was the first documented serial killer. Living in Chicago, Holmes opened a hotel in 1893 that was specifically designed for murdering his victims. He chose mainly female victims who were killed in various ways,
This
which included
motherfucker
being
crazy.
chloroformed, gassed,
yo, it's really
strangled,
people
burnt
out there
alive,
that's
or
really
beaten
like
to death.
whacking
After
motherfuckers,
his
like
arrest,
getting
he
motherfuckers
confessed
out of
to
there, like,
27 murders,
and they're actually
but his
like
actual
doing
body
that shit.
count was over 200. On May 7, 1896, Holmes was hanged at what is now known as the Philadelphia County Prison. Number 9. Edmund Kemper. Also known as the Co-Ed Killer, Edmund is an American serial killer and necrophile who brutally murdered his victims during the 1970s in California. Having murdered his grandparents when he was only 15 years old,
What?
Edmund would later kill and dismember 6 female hitchhikers in Santa Cruz.
What?
Before turning himself into police, he murdered his mother and one of her friends. On November 1974, he was found guilty of 8 counts of murder. Edmund asked for the death penalty, but instead the court gave him a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Number 8. Donald Henry Gaskins. Gaskins started his series of murdering hitchhikers in 1969.
Yeah, he white.
while
He would've
driving
got-
around the highways of the American
yo,
South.
if he was black, he would've got
claimed
the
to have
death
killed
penalty.
80 to 90 people whom he had tortured and mutilated. After one of his criminal associates confessed to having witnessed Gaskins killing 2 young men, he was arrested in 1975. Convicted of 8 murders, Gaskins was sentenced to death, which was later overturned to life imprisonment. While on death row, Gaskins murdered a fellow inmate. He's the only man to have ever committed murder while on death row. Number 7. Dennis Rader, the BTK killer. Between 1974 and 1991, Dennis Rader murdered 10 people in Wichita, Kansas. When he started sending taunting letters to the police, he signed using the nickname BTK, which he says stood for Bind, Torture, Kill. Rader would stalk his victims, break into their homes, then bind and strangle them.
It felt like
He
this
seemed
motherfucker
to
is
have
looking in my
disappeared
eyes,
in
like,
1988, but re-emerged again
oh
in
my
2005. During this time, he was elected president of a church council and
fucking looking
became a
at me,
Cub
you
Scout
sick
leader.
bitch.
On his return to the criminal lifestyle, he
Oh my
taunted
God,
police
he
again,
look crazy
this
as
time
shit.
sending them a floppy disk instead of a letter. The police were able to trace this floppy disk back to Rader, who was then arrested and immediately confessed. He is currently
Dumbass.
serving 10 life sentences. Number 6. Richard Ramirez. Richard was known to be an American serial killer and Satan worshiper. Between 1984 and 1985, he terrorized Los Angeles. Ramirez would break into his victims' homes where he would then shoot, stab, rape, and mutilate his victims.
Yo.
Nicknamed the Night Stalker, Ramirez chose victims who ranged from a 9-year-old girl to a married couple aged in their 60s. He would smear pentagram symbols on the walls of the crime scenes. He was eventually caught in 1985 and was sentenced to death, although remained on California's death row for 23 years before dying in his cell in June 2013. Number 5. Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer was a sex offender and serial killer. Nicknamed the Milwaukee Cannibal, he raped, murdered, and dismembered 17 men and boys between 1978 and 1991. He would also commit necrophilia and would dismember, cook, and eat parts of his victims' bodies. Dahmer was eventually caught in 1992 when he was convicted
he
of
really
15
nasty
murders
as
and
shit.
sentenced to 15 terms of life imprisonment. He died in prison 2 years later when he was beaten to death by a fellow inmate. Number 4. Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy was one of the most notorious serial killers of the 20th century. Bundy would kidnap, rape, and kill his female victims during the 1970s. He would typically approach his victims in public places, and then lead them to quiet areas where he would sexually assault and murder them. He decapitated 12 of his victims and kept their severed heads as trophies in his apartment.
What?
After being caught, he managed to escape police custody, whereby he committed 3 more killings. He was eventually sentenced to death by electric chair in 1989. Number 3. John Wayne Gacy.
That's the clown nigga. I know who that
In
is.
1978, John Wayne Gacy sexually assaulted and
Fucking
murdered
pervert.
3 teenage boys and young men in Chicago, Illinois. Luring his victims into his home with the promise
Come
of
here,
work
little
and money,
boys.
he would later strangle them
Look
with
what I can do with this
He
balloon.
buried some of his victims in a crawl space under his home and
Come
dumped
here,
the
you little
bodies of
fucking
his later
squirts.
victims in the Des Plaines River.
Look, he's
Gacy
fucking
was convicted
smiling.
of 33
Yo,
murders
he
and
is nasty
sentenced
as
to death
shit.
by lethal injection in 1994. Number 2. Tommy Lynn Sells. Known to be one of the most dangerous serial killers in Texas, United States, Sells claims to have killed 70 people.
Damn.
Between 1985 and 1999, he brutally murdered several people, including a 13-year-old girl. He was eventually caught after attempting to murder a 10-year-old girl in her bedroom. The girl survived the stabbing and managed to give police a detailed description of Sells, which led to his arrest. He now remains on death row in a high-security prison in Texas. Number 1. Gary Ridgway. In 2001, Ridgway was arrested for 4 murders throughout Washington state. He eventually confessed to killing at least 70 women during the 1980s and 1990s. He managed to avoid the death penalty by giving detailed confessions to the police and directing them to the locations of his victims. He was given the nickname the Green River Killer after leading the police to 5 bodies which he had dumped in the Green River. Convicted of 49 murders, he was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole.
So what do y'all think of that shit? Hey, is y'all thinking the same thing I'm thinking? Like, these motherfuckers is crazy, sick motherfuckers. Like, why would you want to risk it like that? Like, I wonder what motherfuckers be thinking. Like, what y'all be thinking about? I don't know, like, this shit is blowing me. What be going through your head? Like, how do y'all get satisfied from that shit? How? Can someone fucking tell me how? I just want to know. But yeah, man. It's your boy K Reacts with a lot of questions. You already know. More reactions coming soon. Let's get it.